Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about something that doesn't always come with a manual, doesn't always come with proof, and yet it speaks louder than logic when you learn how to trust it. It's that quiet voice, that subtle nudge, that inner whisper that tries to guide you when the noise of the world gets too loud. I'm talking about your intuition, the inner compass for clarity. We live in a world that constantly demands evidence, facts, and outside validation. But sometimes, the clearest answers don't come from what's outside of us, they come from within. Intuition is not about guessing or being lucky. It's about listening to that built-in compass that has been guiding you all along. And when you learn to unlock it, when you stop ignoring it, clarity begins to replace confusion, direction begins to replace doubt, and confidence begins to replace fear. Intuition is your built-in compass that cuts through noise and brings clarity when logic alone falls short. Most of us grow up being taught to rely on logic, on evidence, on what can be proven or measured. And while those tools are powerful and necessary, they often leave us paralyzed when life doesn't present us with neat solutions. Think about the moments when you have had to make a choice, and no amount of research, advice, or step-by-step reasoning seemed to give you peace. You analyze the pros and cons, you weigh the risks, you ask for other people's opinions, and yet inside you still feel uncertain. That is where intuition shows up, not as a loud voice or a guaranteed prediction, but as a subtle sense of knowing that feels different from fear, different from impulse, and different from outside pressure. It's a feeling that emerges beneath the surface, like a quiet current guiding you toward what resonates with your true self. Imagine standing at a crossroads where both paths look equally appealing. Logic might tell you to take the path that seems safer or more profitable, but deep down, something inside you nudges you toward the other direction, the one that doesn't look as clear on paper but feels right in your heart. That's not a random feeling. That's your built-in compass trying to align you with clarity beyond what your eyes can see. Too often, we dismiss that inner nudge because it doesn't come with evidence or certainty. We tell ourselves we're being irrational or unrealistic, when in reality, intuition is not irrational at all. It's an accumulation of patterns, experiences, and insights your mind and body have absorbed without you even realizing it. It's wisdom beneath the surface, working faster than conscious logic can. Think about how many times you've said to yourself, "I knew something was off," or "I had a feeling about that." Those are not accidents. They are reminders that your intuition is always active, always trying to protect you, always trying to steer you toward clarity. The problem is not that we don't have intuition. The problem is that we've trained ourselves to ignore it. In a culture that rewards logic, data, and proof, we often silence that quiet voice within us because it feels less legitimate than what can be calculated. But the truth is, some of the most important decisions in life, the ones about relationships, career changes, personal growth, are not just logical decisions, they are intuitive decisions. Logic can tell you if a job pays well or if a person has all the qualities you think you need in a partner, but intuition tells you if it feels aligned, if it feels true, if it feels like something you can commit to with peace of mind. When you start treating intuition as a reliable compass rather than a distraction, you begin to cut through the noise that surrounds you. The world is full of voices, opinions, advice, and expectations. If you try to listen to all of them, you end up overwhelmed, pulled in different directions, and more confused than when you started. But when you take a moment to quiet the noise, when you pause long enough to hear that inner guidance, clarity emerges. Clarity doesn't always mean you know every detail of what's coming, but it means you know enough to move forward with confidence. It means you can act without second-guessing every step, because even if the path is uncertain, you know deep down that it's right for you. Consider how this applies in everyday life. You walk into a room and instantly feel the energy shift. You meet someone and something about them makes you feel uneasy, even though they haven't said a word to offend you. You get an opportunity that looks perfect on paper, yet something inside you whispers that it's not for you. These moments are often brushed aside, but they are signals from your built-in compass. They are clarity in disguise, urging you to pay attention not only to what you see, but also to what you sense. The more you learn to honor those signals, the stronger your ability to navigate life with wisdom becomes. It's also important to understand that intuition is not about predicting the future or magically avoiding challenges. Instead, it is about alignment. It aligns you with decisions and directions that are consistent with your values, your character, and your deepest sense of purpose. When logic alone falls short, it is often because logic is only one dimension of decision-making. Logic can calculate, but it cannot feel. Logic can predict outcomes, but it cannot measure fulfillment. Intuition fills that gap. It brings heart into the equation. It allows you to choose the option that may not make sense to others, but makes sense to your soul. You can see this in leaders, artists, entrepreneurs, and even in parents. Some of the greatest innovations, creations, and breakthroughs came not from what looked logical at the time, but from trusting an inner sense that said, "This is the way." They could not always explain it in advance, but their intuition guided them through uncertainty. Parents often rely on intuition when raising children. A parent may know logically what books or experts say, but in the moment, they act based on a feeling that tells them what their child truly needs. That is not guesswork. It is a lived, instinctive clarity born from connection. Your intuition is also a safeguard. It keeps you away from paths that may harm you even when your rational mind can't yet see the danger. Many people recall stories of avoiding situations, leaving environments, or stepping away from opportunities because something felt off. Later, they discovered that their inner sense had protected them from a bigger problem. That's what a compass does. It doesn't just point you forward, it keeps you aligned with safety and truth. Of course, following intuition requires courage. It's not always easy to trust a quiet inner voice when everything outside of you screams for a different choice. It requires confidence to walk a path others might not understand. But clarity is not about making everyone else understand your decision. Clarity is about you understanding it, you feeling at peace with it, you knowing it's aligned with who you are. And that kind of clarity often only comes when you listen to the compass within. What makes intuition so powerful is that it is personal. No one else can access your inner compass. They can give you advice, but they cannot feel what you feel. That's why no amount of external approval can replace internal certainty. When you trust your intuition, you stop seeking constant validation from others because you recognize that the clearest guidance is already within you. It doesn't mean you reject logic or advice. It means you balance them with intuition so that your choices are both wise and authentic over time. The more you practice listening to your intuition, the stronger it becomes. Like any skill, it grows with use. You begin to distinguish between fear, impulse, and genuine inner guidance. You notice how fear makes you shrink back, how impulse pushes you to rush, but how intuition quietly reassures you and nudges you toward clarity. And in those moments, when logic cannot untangle the complexity of life, when the noise of the world clouds your vision, it is intuition, your built-in compass, that cuts through it all and gives you the direction you need. Trusting your inner guidance transforms confusion into direction and doubt into confidence. We've all been in moments where the weight of uncertainty feels overwhelming. You stand at a fork in the road, unsure which way to turn, flooded with questions that logic cannot fully answer. The more you analyze, the more tangled your thoughts become. It feels like the harder you try to think your way through it, the cloudier everything gets. That's because confusion feeds on overthinking and doubt thrives on second guessing. But when you choose to trust that inner guidance, that quiet voice that tells you, even without 100 reasons, what feels right, you begin to move from paralysis into clarity. Confusion begins to settle because you're no longer looking for perfect answers. You're following a deeper sense of alignment. Think about a time when you felt stuck in a cycle of indecision. Maybe it was about a relationship, a career change, or an opportunity that looked good on paper but didn't sit right in your heart. You might have spent sleepless nights weighing options, writing out lists, and asking others for their input. And yet, in the middle of all that noise, there was a subtle pull, a quiet knowing that leaned in one direction. That pull didn't always make sense logically, but the moment you leaned into it, the fog began to lift. The decision didn't instantly become easy, but it became clear. That's the power of trusting your inner guidance. It doesn't always remove the challenge, but it replaces uncertainty with direction. You stop spinning in circles and you start moving forward. Confidence, too, grows from this same process. Most of the time, doubt creeps in not because we lack ability, but because we lack trust in ourselves. We want certainty that others can't provide, so we second-guess every choice. But when you learn to honor that inner compass, you no longer need outside validation to move. You realize that confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to act in alignment with your inner truth despite fear. And that shift changes everything. Suddenly, decisions that once paralyzed you feel manageable because you're no longer trying to prove your choices to the world. You're simply trusting what's true for you. This doesn't mean you stop using logic or wisdom. It means you stop letting doubt control you. You begin to see that doubt is just a voice trying to protect you from the unknown, but it often overprotects, keeping you stuck. Your inner guidance, on the other hand, doesn't shout or scare you. It nudges you. It gives you small signals that lead you forward one step at a time. And the moment you follow those signals, confidence begins to replace the noise of doubt. You may not know the whole journey, but you know the next step, and that is enough. Picture an artist starting with a blank canvas. At first, they might hesitate, unsure of where to place the first stroke. If they overthink it, the canvas stays blank. But the moment they trust their instinct and put down a single line, the painting begins to take form. Each stroke informs the next. That's how inner guidance works in life. It doesn't always hand you the finished masterpiece. It simply gives you the courage to take the first step. And as you keep trusting, the picture becomes clearer and confidence naturally grows. Trusting your inner guidance also frees you from the burden of needing everything to be perfect before you begin. Doubt convinces you that you need every detail mapped out, every risk eliminated, every opinion gathered before you can move forward. But confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from believing that whatever happens, you'll be able to handle it. Inner guidance gives you that belief. It tells you that clarity doesn't come from waiting for the fog to clear. It comes from moving through it with trust. Consider how leaders, creators, and pioneers operate. Many of them stepped into unknown territory with little more than an inner conviction. The path wasn't certain, the outcome wasn't guaranteed, and logic alone couldn't explain their choices. But they trusted their inner guidance. And because they trusted it, they found clarity where others only saw confusion. They built confidence not by waiting for certainty, but by moving in faith, one step at a time. That same principle applies to you. It's also worth noticing how inner guidance transforms the way you handle setbacks. When you trust yourself, setbacks don't break your confidence, they build it. Instead of saying, "I failed, so I can't trust my instincts," you begin to say, "This outcome taught me something, and my intuition will guide me differently next time." That mindset is what keeps doubt from taking root. Doubt makes you fear mistakes. Inner guidance turns mistakes into lessons. That shift is what allows direction to replace confusion and confidence to replace hesitation. Over time, the more you rely on this inner compass, the stronger and clearer it becomes. Decisions no longer feel like battles of endless analysis. They become expressions of trust. You start noticing how often your first instinct is the right one, how often your gut reaction saves you time, and how often your heart knows the truth before your mind catches up. And with each experience, your confidence grows. Not arrogance, not recklessness, confidence. The steady, quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are guided, even when the path ahead is uncertain. This is what it means to transform confusion into direction and doubt into confidence. It's not about ignoring the challenges or pretending fear doesn't exist. It's about shifting the weight of your decisions from overthinking to inner trust. It's about realizing that clarity is not found outside of you, it's unlocked within you. And the more you trust it, the more you realize that your inner guidance was never trying to lead